It's 1980, and a young entrepreneur is stepping into the lobby of a large, unassuming West London townhouse.
In those days, there were no rock and roll studios where bands could just play all night and sleep all day. So we set up a studio in London called the Townhouse, and the Townhouse had this incredible drum room made of stone.
Richard Branson has rocked up to his new Virgin Records studio to check in on a session. The recording of Phil Collins' first solo record.
I remember sitting in the studio when he was messing around in the drum room, and this sort of haunting, incredible sound came out from the studio. And I think all of us looked at each other and thought this was just absolutely and utterly extraordinary.
Record producer Hugh Padgham.
We had no idea that when we were recording it that it would become a single. We were just having fun, just from a sort of sonic point of view. It's like, come on, let's really shock the listener.
But already, those gathered at the Townhouse must know. This record, those drums, are going to change everything.
In the beginning, the song's like calm, and everyone in the crowd just waiting for that anticipation.
There's a bit of a sense of the clouds clearing. Could you get anything more minimalist than that? I mean, it's an incredibly sharp, empty pop song.
But more importantly, the drama of the tune, the way you could have these drums explode.
And then once it hits, I feel like everyone has chills.
That beat is about to echo through history. I'm Zoe Ball. From BBC Sounds, this is Era's Phil Collins. Episode 2, Can You Feel It? So when we last saw Phil Collins, he was rattling around in his empty family house, attempting to come to terms with the breakdown of his marriage.
This was not something that I had wanted. I loved my kids. I used to take Joe to school in the morning. I was the one that used to change Simon's nappies when he got up. But it got very, very nasty. And I kind of, I hit low, really.
With his Genesis bandmates, Mike Rutherford and Tony Banks, off making solo records, there was very little to distract Phil from his grief.
I had friends, and some friends came to stay with me, and we had some madness. There was much partying and there was much lunacy.
You adopted friends and they...
Yeah, I got to know Clapton very well. He was a neighbour, and because of John Martin we met. Eric and Patty were like my best friends for a while. I used to stay there an awful lot.
Do you think if you were ever going to lose your head to drink or the hedonism of the industry, would that have been the point at which to do it?
Yes, it would have been.
But something pulled Phil back from the brink. In the midst of the darkness, he felt a new drive to create.
I really didn't finish a song until I started writing face value material. And that was really born out of a divorce. I was just writing songs as messages because I found I was actually able to say things in songs that I wasn't able to say in person.
Phil wasn't thinking about albums or hits. He was just trying to put his thoughts down in a way that made sense to him.
And so I got this recording equipment, this 8-track stuff in my house, in the master bedroom. I just started to pour everything out that I had inside me into songs. And that was when I started to become a writer. That's when I wrote my first song,
Phil's first instinct was to take his new material to Genesis.
Mike and Tony, having done their solo albums, I gave the guys a listen to my stuff, which included In the Air Tonight and a few other things. I said, which songs do you want to use, because we were having a couple of songs each, and they chose Please Don't Ask, because it was Beach Boyish, and Misunderstanding.
Misunderstanding became the centerpiece of the next Genesis album, Duke. For bandmate Tony Banks, it was clear that something had changed in Phil.
I don't think he was really a kind of all-round lead singer until the Duke sessions, when he suddenly sort of seemed to develop this kind of ability to get this kind of crack in his voice and really be able to deliver with power. And it was really exciting because it really gave an edge to things.
When Duke was released in March of 1980, it became the first Genesis album to top the charts in the UK. And Misunderstanding climbed to number 14 on the Billboard 100. The album was a triumph, but Phil still had shed loads of material left over. Here's Genesis tour guitarist Daryl Sturmer.
We were rehearsing with Genesis, and Phil said to me, I want to play something for you. Come out to my car. So we went out to his car, and he put in a cassette. And it was the demo of In the Air Tonight, with the drum machine starting the, and then all of a sudden, this song comes in with these chords. And when I heard that for the first time, I thought, wow, I didn't know he was a songwriter. I didn't know he could write, that he wrote a song all by himself at that point, because he hadn't, as far as I knew. And I thought, what a great song. And he said to me, he says, I'm thinking about doing a solo album, and I'd love to use you on that.
It was around this time that he decided to reach out to record producer Hugh Padgham, who he'd first met a year earlier.
I was engineering Peter Gabriel's third solo album. Peter invited Phil to come down to the sessions to play drums on, I think, 3 songs. We sort of immediately hit it off, not least because we had a very live studio at the townhouse, and we had a sort of reverse talkback microphone. So I would press a button and I could hear what he was saying in the studio. And this was quite a novel thing. And this reverse talkback had a very heavy compressor on it. And Phil was tuning his drums up and I wanted to talk to him. And I pressed this button and out of the speakers came this most enormous sound. And everyone went, oh my God, that sounds incredible. We had the thing called a noise gate on each channel. So when Phil played the drum, it was like bang. It was like big sound, and then we could just get it to cut off immediately.
Peter Gabriel.
I was totally stunned by this sound, and I just knew that there was something extraordinary in it. I got very excited about it, then Phil did too. And I had him play a much simpler part in order that you could really feel and hear the gate closing on the reverb. So it would sort of suck the sound in a really unusual way.
On the song Intruder, Peter Gabriel, Phil Collins and Hugh Padgham created the explosive drum sound that would change music in the 1980s. This was the template for In the Air Tonight, and it left both Phil and Hugh desperate to go further.
Phone call comes like, Phil's going to make a solo album. Would you like to make it with him? Of course. And I remember very well going down to Phil's house, and that's when I first heard his demos, and they were just not suitable for Genesis. They weren't Genesis songs.
These songs were spacious, sombre and sensitive. And, a tad surprisingly for a man who'd made his name beating the hell out of a drum kit, they depended heavily on a drum machine.
As a songwriter, I find drum machines indispensable because it opens up the writing. If you haven't got a drum machine, I tend to fill in the bits where the rhythm is, whereas if you've got a rhythm there with a drum machine, you tend to leave the space.
In that space, Phil felt free to explore the darker regions of his subconscious. Nowhere more so than on In the Air Tonight.
It's an angry, bitter song. I mean, if you told me you were drowning, I would not lend a hand, probably. It's pretty obvious. I think it's just interesting. I mean, most of the lyrics are improvised. The lyric, I sing lots of times. I just sing. Very rarely do I say, now, what am I going to write about? I just sing, and then I will write down what I've sung.
When Hugh Padgham first heard these strange, almost stream of consciousness recordings, he was immediately taken with them.
It was very exciting, and the demos were so good that we used some of the parts of the demos on the main record as well.
The idea was to preserve the atmosphere of Phil's home recordings, which would serve as the foundation for the album.
My premise for that album, when it came to the overdubbing on top of the demos, was who do I want to get on this album? I want to get my heroes. So I basically gave Atlantic Records a list of people. There was Arif Mardin, the Earth, Wind and Fire Horns, Eric Clapton, who I'd since got to know by this point, Stephen Bishop, and Darryl was already in Genesis and we were very close, so he was going to play guitar. So I really got my heroes.
Crucially, despite its heartbroken origins, Face Value was not recorded in misery. By the time he'd reached the studio, Phil had begun to see a light at the end of the tunnel. Enter Jill Tavelman, an LA-based teacher who Phil met on the road and fell for hard.
So really, I was coming out of the gloom before I even finished Face Value. And I was writing This Must Be Love, for instance, was a song that I wrote for Jill.
This must be love.
When Phil's friend, the legendary drummer of Yes, Bill Bruford, first heard the finished album, he knew it was something special.
Clearly, it was the divorce album to end all divorce albums. It was very atmospheric, and that record really did seem to be touched by magic. And I said, I don't know what's going to happen to this, Phil, but it smells good to me.
The only question was whether the public would buy into Phil Collins' Solo Man.
We felt that we had a real chance that, Phil as the solo artist could do as well as Genesis.
Owner of Virgin Records, Richard Branson.
He was such a nice person. He was delightful to have on the record company. Everybody at Virgin wanted to work massively hard on making him a massive success because he was light. And so enormous time and energy went in making his solo album a great success. And you never know with an album until it's out.
Genesis albums had always featured obscure artwork with no photo of the band in sight. But for his first solo album, Phil felt like a change. Remember, Phil started out as an actor. He was no stranger to the headshot.
The jobs that I got were the knitting patterns and the odd TV play, BBC play. But the thing I never got, which I thought was interesting, was commercials. I never got one commercial audition, which means I didn't have the face that could sell anything, which I thought was really interesting. In later life, I thought, I put my face all over the records now, but I had the face that can't sell anything.
When Face Value was released in February of 1981, with a close-up shot of Phil Collins' mug right there on the cover, it disproved that theory, and some. The album shot to number 1 in the UK and number 7 in the States, and would eventually sell more than 12 million copies worldwide. It also proved a hit with the critics. Music writer Kate Mossman.
There was a clarity and a precision about Face Value that I think appealed to critics at the time, and they may have been the same critics that weren't that keen on Genesis. So there's a bit of a sense of sparsity in the production, and that seems to be the polar opposite to everything that prog rock stood for and people used to think that Genesis stood for.
Bob Geldof.
I was aware of Genesis, but I wasn't interested in them. I wasn't interested in that sort of music at all. And then I heard Phil, and everyone says it was classic 80s. It just wasn't to me. There was so much space in his songs. They were precisely atmospheric. I just saw the hits were great hits, proper hits, lasting things. You have songs that are ephemeral, they're a hit for the moment and then they're gone. I thought, these are really good, this will last, so that was it.
But nobody was more surprised by all this adoration than the man who had made it.
The album made itself, The album was made before I even realised I was going to do a solo album. I didn't sit down and say, right, solo album, I've got a recording contract, what am I going to do? That all came afterwards. So, for it to come out and get good reviews, which it did, and then for it to do so well worldwide was a major shock to me.
With that success came a whole new level of exposure. Consider the scrutiny around Phil's first ever appearance on Top of the Pops.
The first time I did Top of the Pops in the air, I had a Prophet 5 synthesizer and a drum machine, and I didn't have a keyboard stand, so I took a workmate from the studio, I think it was, and we put the keyboard on the workmate. And I sat on a stool. And then while we were rehearsing, the drum machine, which had to be put on something, we thought, I'd get a tea chest, because that would go with the workmate. So we got a tea chest. And then in between takes, a pot of paint arrived, because they were going to paint the tea chest, I think. And I said, no, they don't paint the tea chest, leave the tea chest like it is. So I put the pot of paint on the drum machine. Then it went out on the air, and a lot of people said, what the hell is the pot of paint for? My ex-wife saw the pot of paint, and she went off with the decorator, you see. So she thought that my pot of paint was actually a very pointed thing at her, and it certainly wasn't.
It's worth mentioning once again that Andy has always said there was more to the breakdown of the marriage than her affair with the decorator. But having the public pore over the most intimate details of your personal life was new territory for Phil, and it was something he would have to get used to in the years to come. For the time being, he dealt with it the only way he knew how, by disappearing into his work. It was around this time that Phil first met Led Zeppelin's Robert Plant.
I was coming out of 12 years in my previous setup with Zeppelin, and I was very haphazard. I didn't know. It's like suddenly you've lost all the structure of everything around you. And anyway, I set about for myself to make a record. And then I got this note from Phil saying, my whole time as a drummer, I've always looked so highly upon John Bonham, and if you need any help, I'm your man. I'd find it great to try and fill a drum stool behind you. And I was so flattered by that, because really I'd always seen myself as a bit of an appendage in Zeppelin, just sort of wiggling around and coming up with some funny lyrics.
After so much heat in the limelight, Phil was all too happy to slip back onto the drum stool and let someone else take centre stage.
True to his word, he came down to Rockfield. He said to me, look, I can give you
a week. I can give you Monday to Friday, but we've got to do all the tracks by then. I said, okay. So he came down and he was incredible because his awareness of where he sat within the music and the embellishments that he gave, the drive that he gave to the whole thing on a musical level. And we really did get these tracks down. But we had so much fun. We lived in a little house on the top of the hill, and it was nothing but excitement and positivity.
This was an era of incredible growth for Phil, with his solo successes paving the way for new opportunities. But he didn't lose sight of the reason he'd got there in the first place.
Listen, how about the fellas in Genesis? Are they furious?
Oh, no.
They're spitting blood, I heard. The rumor in the music press is they're spitting blood.
No, as soon as you do anything on your own, people tend to think that you can't do two things at once, so therefore the group must be sort of splitting up in no more. But
the group are not splitting up.
Absolutely not.
When Genesis set about recording their first album since the colossal success of Phil's solo record, they came to the process feeling rejuvenated.
It's the next Genesis album after Face Value. I'd worked with Hugh Padgham on that album, and he came in for the first time as Genesis co-producer. And we stripped the sound back down, and everybody made a conscious effort to try and avoid the pitfalls that maybe we were going to fall into. So from our point of view, it was a very new Genesis sound.
Abacab, released in September of '81, topped the charts in the UK and reached number 7 in the States. Not 2 years into the decade, Phil Collins already had released 3 number 1 albums, and he was showing absolutely no sign of slowing down. After finishing a mammoth tour with Genesis, Phil headed directly back to the studio to work on solo album number 2.
I did think, especially the way Face Value was written, I didn't think I had another album in me, But isn't the divorce law wonderful? These things drag on forever. So I actually did have a lot of things that were still coming out.
You can tell everyone I'm a down disgrace. Drag my name all over the place. I don't care anymore.
On Hello, I Must Be Going, Phil returned to the wound of his embittered divorce. But he also wanted to throw something a little bit more uplifting into the mix.
I wanted to do a cover. I like doing other people's songs, and I kind of had a short list of Motown songs that I would like to have done. And You Can't Hurry Love, I kind of figured was one of my favourite songs when I was at school. I thought I'd just have a crack at it. And I put Motown, We Salute You on the sleeve notes because of my love for the thing.
Can't hurry, love. No, you'll just have to wait. She said love don't come easy. But it's
It was this tribute to his boyhood obsession with Motown that would end up breaking a major milestone in Phil's career.
Well done, Phil, and congratulations on the number 1 hit.
Thank you, Terry.
Did it come as a surprise to you?
Yes, well, I was hoping that all the stacks of record that are in my garage would actually sort of pay off.
You Can't Hurry Love was a major hit, but the other tracks on Hello, I Must Be Going didn't climb to the same heights, and the critics' response was more muted this time round.
People outside, your fans, the critics, think that it's almost a formula that you've patented.
That's why
your
I spend
next
my time
album,
trying to tell
Hello, I
you.
Must Be Going, also seemed to bring together this heartache and emotion. Again, big successes, almost like you were cashing in on your private life.
Well, all I can say is it wasn't like that. And I know it. I know people think that. I write about what's happening to me,
All the same, some of that criticism did ring true.
The second album was, in a way, more the divorce album, because that was the album of the lawyers' letters. Maybe I was a bit much more angry and bitter at that point. My second album was not as good as any of the other albums, really, to be honest.
Phil emerged from album 2 with a nagging sense that next time around he'd need to change things up. But in the meantime, there was the day-to-day business of a pop star on the rise to attend to.
I got a call from the chairman of the Princess Trust, which had been going for a few years, but not involved with music at all. And he said, I'd like to meet with you because Prince Charles has asked me to ask you if you'd become a trustee of the trust. And I thought, God, this is incredible.
In 1982, Phil Collins played a starring role at the inaugural Prince's Trust Rock Gala, performing alongside an all-star cast, including his mate, Robert Plant.
I remember doing the Prince's Royal Trust with him, the very first one, with Midge and Townsend and people. And he was the driving wheel, as Bobby Blue Bland would call it. He was right behind the whole show. He'd learned everything. What a great thing to do, to be that good, that you're prepared to wing it through everybody's songs in a show like that.
This was the start of a peculiar period in Phil's story, in which he became the turn of choice for the newlywed royal couple.
We gave them a box of Genesis albums just as a gesture, you know, sort of, this is what you heard. And the next time they came, Diana came up to me and said, why didn't you play more from A Trick of the Tail? And I thought, Christ, she's been listening to her.
Well, there you have it. Lady Di, a Genesis fan. I've always suspected that we had that in common. In 1983, Genesis returned with their self-titled 12th album and topped the charts once again. Life during this period was a never-ending succession of pinch-me moments, such as the one that saw Phil produce the new album of his dear friend, Eric Clapton.
I wanted him to show people what he was capable of, because those people were thinking, well, the best of EC we've heard. And I wasn't convinced that was the case. And he was writing all these very personal songs, because at the time I didn't know it, but his marriage was falling apart. And it was his most personal album yet.
Now, if anyone knew how to channel that pain into creativity, it was Phil. Eric was newly sober at the time and freshly committed to his music. Phil and Eric would decamp to Montserrat for the bulk of the recording. But the resounding memory from the whole experience would arrive once they'd returned to England.
Eric called me one day and he said, I got one more song for the record. I said, well, everyone's gone home. He said, yeah, but I want it on a record. He said, I'll come round now. So he came round with the guitar and I'm thinking, this is a bedroom with just my little 8-track material, equipment in it. And he played it to me and it was lovely. It was called Behind the Sun and it was just him and his guitar. So he said, plug the guitar and let's get a sound and we'll do it. And I'm thinking, I got Eric Clapton, you know. Suddenly, I wasn't his producer and friend. I was kind of, you know, the 15-year-old kid at the bus stop hearing Cream play. And I said, okay, plugged it in. So we recorded the song, and then he said, okay, I'm going to sing it now. So I'm thinking, God, I haven't even got a good mic here, really. Anyway, he sang it, first take, and he said, that's great, that's what I want. Anyway, so that ended up being the last track of the album.
The timing of this whole chapter couldn't have been more poignant. Just as he was helping to rekindle some of a dear friend's former glory, Phil Collins was about to ascend to the very peak of his own career.
Now, 84 was a good year for you.
God, yeah. In fact, while I was doing Eric's album in Montserrat, Against All Odds went to #1. I think that was my first ever American #1. That song was written for Face Value, but I felt I had one ballad too many on that album, so I left it off. I suppose I must have felt it was a weaker song than the rest. And then Taylor Hackford called me a couple of years later and said, I want you to write a song for my film, Against All Odds. So I saw the rough cut of the film. And I said, listen, I'm on the road, Taylor. I can't really write a song, but I have got a song left over that's a ballad, and if you like it, I could write some words for it.
How can I just let you walk away? Just let you leave without a trace.
From a leftover that didn't make the cut, all the way to Phil Collins' first US #1. 1984 was shaping up to be a very big year indeed.
The end of 84, you teamed up with Philip Bailey.
Right. My first tour was in 83. That's the first time I'd ever been out on the road with my own band. During that tour, Phil Bailey, being an Earth, Wind & Fire member, and me using the horn section, he came down to the gig in LA and he loved the gig.
Earth, Wind & Fire's Philip Bailey.
I was totally blown away by everything that I heard and saw and felt. I was taken away by the wonderful songs, the musicianship, the voice, the drum playing, and one thing led to another.
He said, will I produce his next album?
In Phil Collins, Philip discovered a bit of a kindred spirit, someone who'd drawn from the same well of inspiration that he had.
I was born and raised in Denver, Colorado, so my musical palette was everything from middle of the country music to jazz to R&B, pop, whatever. And I'm sure that's the same with Phil, you know, listening to the Motown stuff. And the one thing about music that is really very cool is the fact that it captures the heart, mind, and soul of people everywhere. So, yeah, I was very excited about the opportunity to collaborate with him.
In 1984, Philip Bailey flew over to Phil's home turf to begin work on his new album, Chinese Wall.
Phil was just the greatest host. He welcomed me there with open arms. I was at his house first, just going through songs and just enjoying the atmosphere. And I think that had a lot to do, I know that it had a lot to do with the way the project turned out. It definitely was the most noted project that I've done. And shoot, man, we had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs and giggles, and introduced me to Lager and Lime.
Between sinking pints at Phil's Local, the pair also found time to throw down one of the most infectious pop anthems of all time.
One of the last things we did was write for Easy Lover, me, Nathan East and Phil Bailey. And we recorded it. Once we'd finished writing it, we recorded it that night with the intention of just recording it so we wouldn't forget it. And the next day we came in with the intention of recording it properly. Heard the version we'd done the night before and said, well, that's it. We don't need to do it again. So the version that came out was actually a first take job. And it's got such a lot of energy on it, and I still think it's one of the best things I've been associated with.
Easy Lover was a global smash hit, topping the charts in the UK and spending 23 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100.
You can't predict that kind of thing, and you can't make it up. You could go your whole career and not have one of those. But yeah, it was a fantastic success all over the world. I'm proud of the enormous success and the longevity of the song and the opportunity that I had to spend that real quality time with Phil C. It was very, very special, something that I'll always remember and hold dear in my heart.
The back-to-back smash hits of Against All Odds and Easy Lover announced the arrival of a different kind of artist, one who had a lot less to mope about.
August 84, also a great month and year for you because that was the month and year you got married.
That's right, August 4th. I remember, darling, don't worry. Yeah, we've been together since 1979-80, Jill and I, so we just decided to get married, and we had the reception in our house, which was a mistake, because although people say they'll clean up after them, all the caterers and stuff, they never do.
So you didn't invite Zeppelin?
No. Robert came, though, yeah. We did have a great trad jazz band playing at the wedding, and obviously the inevitable thing happened. I mean, we had all the equipment there and everybody got up and played. So there was Eric, me, Robert Plant, and we had a great jam session.
1 minute you're a teenager waiting in line outside the marquee, hoping to catch the debut show of Led Zeppelin or Clapton's new outfit, a little group called Cream. The next, you're playing alongside them to your assembled friends and family on your wedding day. Isn't life the strangest thing? And it's about to get a hell of a lot stranger.
Well, they used In the Air on the first Miami Vice, and everybody in America apparently thought that was the theme song, so they started asking for it in the shops, and it went into the charts again.
Next time, on Era's Phil Collins, The Imperial Years.
I got this phone call from Geldof, who I'd never met, and he said, hello, Phil. Did you see those things on television last night? So I said, what things? He said, the Michael Burke things about Ethiopia. So I said, no, I didn't. I was working. He said, well, it's terrible, man. We've got to do something about it.
I'm Zoe Ball, and this is Era's Phil Collins. If you're loving this series of eras, there's loads more to enjoy. For more music, archive and interviews from the Beatles, ABBA, Queen and Kylie Minogue, search Eras on BBC Sounds.